It's Maximum News. I am your host, as always, Max Derrat, and I'm joined, as always, by Sybsidian of the Triple S League. First things first, we can't talk about the State of Play. I know this is releasing on Wednesday, and there's supposed to be a Sony State of Play. This is the only time that we were really able to record this podcast. So I'm going to be pretty busy the next few days. But trust me, if something Silent Hill related is going to be announced, which is looking like it's going to happen, guys, expect me to do some sort of coverage over on my main channel. I'll link to that in the description box below. But aside from that, all we know for certain is that they're going to show Rise of Ronin stuff and Stellar Blade stuff, which is interesting. And it's also heavily hinted that Death Stranding 2 stuff is going to show up, which makes me happy as a Hideo Kojima fan. Aside from that, we don't really know, but we'll definitely talk about it on next week's Maximum News. And then second of all, before we get into the main stuff, Syb, you ever hear of a game called Spec Ops: The Line?
Yeah, just a little bit. Yeah.
Bit. It's very well revered by people who are fans of great storytelling in video games. It's also one of the greatest adaptations of the old Joseph Conrad novel, Heart of Darkness, and it's one of my personal favorite games. I'm just letting people know that in case they don't own a copy of the game, but they've always wanted to play it on the PC, Steam just delisted it from their storefront. And apparently the reason why is because there's certain licenses that they didn't choose to renew. I think it's due to some of the music that's in the game, like from Jimi Hendrix and stuff like that. So you can still get it on GOG. All right. So if you want to own a PC game of like one of the most important narratives ever told in a video game, make sure you go over to GOG and buy it right now. It's 80% off. I got it for $6 Canadian, so that's like what, $4.50 American. So make sure you go and get it. It's definitely worth your money. I promise you. Go check it out right now, please. All right. Did you ever play it, Seb?
No, but it's one of those games that I definitely did watch a lot of people playing it.
Yeah.
Because again, first person, not the greatest. Some shooters, not the greatest. I have issues with those, but this one is. This one's especially good from a narrative standpoint, from a lesson perspective of teaching stuff. And this is one of my top 10 games to watch people react to.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah.
Especially the ending.
Just watching people react to what's happening on screen as they play through. It is really honestly one of the best. You know, I think one of my favorite animes to watch people react to is My Hero Academia, because it's got so many just absolutely banger moments. But this is one of my favorite games to do, and I really do actually. It's kind of weird. I really do enjoy watching people react to stuff. Not react channels, but like individuals reacting to a game that they're playing or a movie that they're watching or a book that they're reading, especially when I know it and I know what's going to happen in it and I'm watching their reaction and they're like, their eyes are lighting up and they're going, oh my goodness, what's happening? Or like, wow, this is amazing. Like any of those kinds of stuff. It really is like, it's like recharging to the soul almost. It's like my soul food.
Yeah. Although, like, I totally 100% agree with you. It just sounds weird saying that about a game like Spec Ops: The Line, considering how much messed up stuff happens in it. But you're right, especially the ending of that game. It's one of the most profound moments in the history of gaming.
I do wonder. I haven't heard any rumors recently, but I did hear some several years ago that they were looking at turning this into a movie and or television show.
I heard about that too.
I do wonder if there is some of that happening. I think that would be very interesting. I don't know if that's why. I doubt that that's the reason why. I think it was just music and audio, and there is, especially with music, there's a lot of ways and there's a lot of things that can happen that kind of kill certain games because of that.
Yeah. The Metal Gear games.
Yeah. Well, it's not only that, it's like movies too. Some movies and television shows will utilize music and they only get like a 5 or 10 year license because they think that's all they need, or they think that they can update it, or for whatever reason it was just cheaper or whatever. So it's a little bizarre. So yeah.
Like LucasArts in the KOTOR remake. Oh, hey. But anyways, make sure you go and purchase that right away, guys. It's definitely worth your money. Just wanted to make sure anybody who listens to this podcast was aware of that. All right. Just got a few stories to talk about this week. Nothing terribly big, but we want to do weekly shows, and the stuff that there is still worth talking about. I don't know, Seb, what do you want to talk about first? You want to talk about Pal World or the day before?
Well, let's start with the day before because oh crap, I had a quip for this.
Yeah.
Let's start with the day before because it's the day after their failure.
Right. And the day before they get sued. I don't know.
I'm sure everybody's rolling their eyes and sighing like, oh my goodness, that was not funny.
That was better than anything that was included in this game. But anyways, the day before studio, we all know them. Fantastic. We love them. Not so much. They, as I'm sure most people know that what's been happening with this game, but just in case you don't, a brief recap. The day before was the most wishlisted game on Steam. The premise that Fantastic was promoting with this game up until its release was that it would be an MMO zombie survival type game, which on its own sounds like an amazing idea. And the way that they were framing the game in the few trailers that they released seemed really interesting. So much so that it made it become the most wishlisted game on Steam. But then leading up to it, like the lack of communication from the developers and just a lot of really shady stuff happening behind the scenes with the funding and all that just made people think that this game was a scam. But the few times that Fantastic responded to these claims when they said that it wasn't a scam, people weren't really that convinced, and then they released some marketing material and people were even more convinced that it was a scam. Then the game came out and it was only available for 4 days before it got taken off of this out of Steam early access, I think, because it was just so bad and people were en masse requesting their money back. And then you can't really get it anymore. Now people are, the only way you can get it is if you can get game codes. I don't even know how you would get those. And I don't even understand why people are apparently spending around $200 to get their hands on these things. I guess just for novelty's sake, just to say it's
novelty, it's being a part of history.
Sure, yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's not because people actually think that the game is good. But anyways, since then, I don't know why they felt the need to do this. Maybe it's because there's some legal stuff behind the scenes that's making them do it. But Fantastic took to Twitter and they posted a response to all the negative feedback that they've been receiving. And, well, did it go well, Sib? Well, the fact that they had to take it down like 24 hours later should tell you everything. But, this is the internet. And nothing ever dies on the internet. Unfortunately, though, because I'm an idiot, I accidentally took the response off my computer. But no, I got it here. All right, so we're going to read this. And just to summarize very quickly before I read the exact quote, they don't really take much personal responsibility for the game's failure. Instead, they blame it primarily on hate bloggers. So here's the quote. They wrote something in bold here, like just the response that they're offering is sort of like a frequently asked questions post of sorts. And the question that they asked is, why do they say that the released game is not the same as that in the trailers, and why was the game closed? To which Fantastic responds, quote, "We implemented everything shown in the trailers, from home improvements and a detailed world to off-road vehicles. We only disabled a few minor features like parkour due to bugs, but plan to include them in the full release. Remember the experiment where you're asked to count pink objects in a room and then recall the blue ones? You won't remember any. It's all about focus. The negative bias instilled by certain bloggers making money on hate affected perceptions of the game. Look at unbiased gameplay like..." I'm sorry, I can't not laugh when I read this. "Look at unbiased gameplay like Dr. Disrespect's stream at release. Despite the initial bugs and server issues, he liked the game, which we fixed later. And the game received improved reviews over the weekend. Unfortunately, the hate campaign had already inflicted significant damage." Well, really? Well, why didn't you just keep it up then? By the way, after sales closed, many people wrote to us that bloggers had deceived them and they liked the game and they asked for access. We also heard that petitions were created to continue development. And on the black market, the game's price exceeded $200. Yeah, that's not the reason why it exceeded $200. And some even began to make their own mods. And that was the end of the relevant quote. Aside, it's not controversial to say that there are hate bloggers on YouTube. It's not even controversial to say that there are people that make their entire living off of hating other stuff.
It's not just YouTubers and bloggers. You know, we broke the story a long time ago that we approached a prominent news group and company to talk about negative issues that were harming developers, and we wanted to showcase the correct thing and point out the truth of the matter, especially when it came to coverage and stuff like that. And they told us flat out, that story is a feel-good story. Those don't do good, so we're just going to focus on the negativity right now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, negativity sells. You know, hate farming sells. Hate clicks sell. It really does. There's entire channels that exist solely off of the person and the people behind the screen just hating each other, desperately hating each other, and that's like shocking, annoying, and very unhealthy. You know.
Yeah. And that's no doubt true. Sorry, continue.
Yeah. So it's one. They are 100% true, but their reasons for folding and all this stuff, it really does come off as not very. I don't know what's a nice way to say it.
Honest.
Yeah, it doesn't come off as honest in any way, shape, or form, and I really don't think that they are honest. I have been so confused on this. They either have the worst
PR
communication skills and PR in the entire world, and they never sought to improve that or learn anything about it. And they also have just straight up have a bad way of marketing their game. If they had come out and marketed this as early alpha, they're expecting to do an actual full release in 2 years. They make you do a little I agree thing at the start where it's like, hey, just so you know, this game is going to have problems, bugs, difficulties. If you are still okay with that, please press this button. If not, submit for a refund. And then they don't let you go into the game without connecting to that. Then everybody would have said, all right, it's not great. It's not even good. It's barely passable as a functional game, but this is their early alpha. This is fine. Like this is fine. I mean, hell, League of Maiden has I think more sale. I think that game was sold very, very well, considering that it's still in air quotes like beta or alpha or whatever it is. And I mean, it's like, again, it's not like huge, but it's like they're making money. They're making enough money to keep their work going, and they use a lot of the same tactics that these guys used. So they could have just opened the book of several other games and just copied what they were doing, but they didn't. For some reason, they were like finished product / official release. Right. It's like not even Epic did that with Fortnite.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah, but I agree to some extent. That's certainly part of it. They could have done a better job making it clear to people that this is very early access. But it's also the fact that it was supposed to come out like over a year prior to that, but then it didn't come out because of some sort of trademark dispute. And then they said it was going to come to all consoles. When did the game release? A month ago, right? Like December 1st, I think it was. So, and then prior to that, like I think it was only up until like a week or two before it released, they said it was going to come out on all consoles. But then a week or two before release, it was just early access for PC. And that's not the only example of like really shady, unclear stuff coming from their PR department. It's a whole bunch of other stuff that happened prior to that, stuff that we covered on the Maximum News Show for up to like 2 years. If they just taking care of that, I think people's expectations would have been kept a little bit more in check. They probably would have been able to get more funding, maybe not to the extent of Star Citizen, but just because people want something like this so badly, something like this to work, people would have put their money behind it. But yeah, very, very tone deaf. And yeah, I don't know. I'm just kind of tired of talking about it. But it just, as far as news goes, guys, this is just one of the few things that really came out this past week. It's still the beginning of the year. Saib, did you have any other thoughts on this? Like, why the hell would they do this? Like, just go quiet.
Again, 100%. This is a company that had no ability or understanding on how to communicate. Because if they truly do believe that they're victims in this, it's because they're either, psychopathic in the sense of like, they lie, they know they lie, they're doing it to manipulate people, period. But there is a chance that they're just really bad at communication. And I would say that out of all the game developers that I've known over the years, only about probably 5% of them are really good communicators. Like public speaking, able to communicate.
Sure.
Lead, in public, that kind of stuff. Most of them are not at that level. And I understand that. But if you're going to pop into an industry where communication, especially public-facing communication, is your lifeblood, bro, you need to have someone to do that job for you.
Yeah.
And you need to be able to communicate with that person with 100% clarity. And everything that I'm seeing now, and in kind of like looking at it from the backside here of their cancellation, I think that it really does boil down to they did not know how to communicate at all. They never understood that they didn't know how to communicate, and now they're butthurt over the fact that they didn't know how to communicate, never accepted the fact that they didn't know how to communicate, and are now blaming people for it. And that's giving them the benefit of the doubt, which I still don't know if they deserve.
Right.
It is one of those things where it's like I'll say that the game was made poorly. It did have its potential, and if I was given this right now, I could make this thing work. It would take a lot of effort.
Sure.
It would take a lot of doing, but I could make this thing work. I could make this thing sell 100,000 copies in probably like a year.
A year or two.
It's not impossible to come back. There are worse projects on Steam right now with a huge community behind them that are actively engaged in the game's development. But that's the thing is like they came out and said this is a done deal, and I think that was the biggest mistake. Is like saying, oh yeah, no, we're so good at making this game, and it's such a brilliant idea, which again, like crazy much,
right?
That they think that it's a finished product when it's like, nah, this is like it's not early alpha. This is like kind of like middle alpha. And you've got a long way to go. You've probably got another 2 years of development to go. It's just like Starfield, man. It's like Starfield. In order for it to hit the greatness that it can, it needs a big overhaul. It needs probably 4 to 5 major DLCs with or expansion level content to flush out everything and to improve the game. I mean, if we can see Cyberpunk go from probably one of the worst official releases ever to what it's at right now, this game could 100% be saved. But they didn't have that sticking power at all. And then they just folded like crazy, which added to the concept that they were screwing people over somehow.
Yeah.
It's so bizarre.
Yeah.
It's so bizarre on so many levels. It's so bizarre.
Yeah. And just one final comment to something that you just said. I understand to some degree having to put on the brave face and the courageous face and, try to sell your game, even if you are telling lies here and there at the present, as long as you deliver when the time comes to deliver. But in the case of Fantastic, they kept that facade all the way up until the end. And again, that just comes down to a lack of proper representation. So yeah, hopefully now that the day before has kind of set the standard as far as false advertising, whether or not that was intentional or not. I tend to think to some degree it was, but whatever your thoughts are, at least we had that example so that maybe people will do their best to try and avoid that now that we have like an archetypal example. All right. Now,
and you're 100% right. This is an archetypical example of how not to communicate in early game development.
Right. Now let's move to the exact opposite of what the day before represents, to something that is a major success. Obviously, we talked about Palworld last week. Still continues to kick ass. I haven't checked the Steam charts. I'm actually going to do that in a second when you're talking. But obviously, one of the things that we talked about and sort of continues to be the topic of conversation is whether or not Palworld, despite its amazing success and the fact that it is a fun game to a lot of people, plagiarized assets. I'm obviously referring to the discussion surrounding whether or not the assets that were plagiarized came from actual Pokemon games. So in case you guys didn't miss last week or you're not in the loop, in Palworld, you can capture monsters just like in Pokemon. And the monsters, the designs of them do tend to look somewhat like Pokemon monsters in the Pokemon games. So much so that if you take the 3D models of monsters from Palworld and line them up with 3D models of the monsters from Pokemon, in some cases, things, certain limbs look like they were ripped directly from them, which is concerning. Now, a lot of people are wondering, well, if they did, what is Nintendo going to do? Are they going to take legal action? Do they see that this is something that they're willing to pursue? Well, excuse me, guys. We finally got an official statement from them. It's a short statement, but it's worthwhile bringing up because this is probably going to be something that continues for a while. The Pokemon Company put up on their official website the following, quote, "We have received many inquiries regarding another company's game released in January 2024. They don't even name them. We have not granted any permission for the use of Pokemon, intellectual property, or assets in that game. We intend to investigate and take appropriate measures to address any acts that infringe on intellectual property rights related to the Pokemon. We will continue to cherish and nurture each and every Pokemon and its world, and work to bring the world together through Pokemon in the future." And that's the end of it. So, yeah, I imagine, like I said last week, any company that has their IP infringed upon has the right to take legal action to protect their IP. Because if they don't, then their IP becomes devalued, right? And I totally understand Pokemon willing to go out and do this. Whether or not any actual infringement has taken place, we'll have to see. In fact, I can't remember where I read this. I think it was an outlet called Automaton, if I recall correctly. Whoever led the development on Palworld was interviewed by them, and he said that before they released the game, they went through all the legal procedures to make sure that they weren't infringing on anybody's copyright. But I don't know, maybe they just weren't looking particularly in depth as much as they should have. But who knows? Maybe because they went through that, Pokemon can't really do anything. I don't know how the law works, but it's interesting. Syb, do you think, I can't remember if I got your opinion on this last week. Do you think that Pokemon is going to take legal action here, or do you think it's just going to be like, let it be and try to make a better product on their own terms?
So this is where my bizarre ability to get interesting comments from developers and studio heads and all this comes into play. Because I have one of the greatest a little birdie just told me.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes. A little birdie just told me that one Yuji Horii had a message delivered to the head of Nintendo just a few days ago. And the message was, I wish you all the best in your investigation into Palworld. That is
Yuji
obviously an English translation, and it may be, I believe the wording was a little bit slightly different, but that's the communication that it delivered. For those of you like Max who do not know who Yuji Horii is the game creator behind the Dragon Quest universe.
Okay.
The Dragon Quest, the first one came out in I believe in 1986.
Yeah.
Featured a lot of cutesy elemental creatures that you were able to communicate with. I believe you battled some of them. I believe that some of them were allies or things that could communicate with you. And in case you're wondering or are asking yourself, what does this have to do with Pokemon and Palworld? Pokemon completely ripped off of, not in a little way, they completely ripped off of pretty much every single elemental found in the original Dragon Quest and in Dragon Quest II, which came out a year later.
No, he's right. He's right, guys.
There has been articles written on this. There have been significant posts made on this for decades about how Pokemon was basically walked into another IP and just said, "Oh, yes, this is nice. I will take all of it," and never once paid a dime ever to get this fixed or made or anything like that. They're now owned by, I believe it's Square Enix, or at least those are the primary developers for it. Yuji Horii, and I did look up how to pronounce his name properly, and apparently that's the way you pronounce it, is Yuji Horii. He is 70, and he is still making Dragon Quest.
God bless him.
He is still working as a designer, as a creator. Dude's like very old. And yeah. he is still at it. I believe he works through Armor Project, but yeah, he is still behind and working on as of to be announced game upcoming. They released 2 games last year. He was still the general director last year for Infinity Stash, Dragon Quest: The Adventures of Daya, and Dragon Quest Monsters: The Dark Prince. And they will be announcing a new Dragon's Quest 12 coming up here shortly.
Yeah. And
he is head of game design and scenarios. Horii is one of the most prolific creators in Japan, and he doesn't get enough. He does not get enough credit for this.
Oh, he's a godfather of gaming.
Oh yeah, he. I mean, this is the guy he was the supervisor on Chrono Trigger. He was the a bunch of Japanese games that never got out to North America.
Yeah.
But Fortune Street, a ton of other ones. Just mostly, I mean, and the Dragon Quest games, I think all totaled, there's an ungodly amount of them because there's so many spin-offs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And he's been the executive producer on all of them. So again, take it with a grain of salt as to whether or not this message was actually sent, or if it was a rumor, or if it was a joke, or whatever. I cannot promise anything in particular, but the point still stands. If Nintendo sues, I anticipate one of the biggest lawsuits against them and against the entire Pokemon IP.
Yeah.
And deservedly so. So I think in this, the best thing they could possibly do is bow their head and say, "Nah, it's a different product. It is fine."
Yeah.
And maybe in the future try and tighten up just a little bit of their stuff. But I mean, like, again, pot calling the kettle black in this particular context.
Sure.
This would absolutely be insane for them to push for this. I really, really doubt that anybody would have that much hubris behind them to say, "Oh yeah, no, we're coming after, we're coming after this." Oh, that would be very interesting.
Yeah. When you put it that way, it's very true. And guys, honestly, you should go to Google and just look up a Dragon Quest Pokemon comparison. I'm looking at one right now, and I'm just looking at some of the Pokemon from Generation 1. Oh my god. It's unbelievable.
It is not like, I mean, we look at one, I think the wolf is the best one, where it's like, wow, that looks really similar, guys. This is really similar. No, my friend. You go look at Dragon Quest 1 and original Pokemon. That is not just, hey, this looks really simple. This is like, hey, did you just copy the pixels?
Right.
Like, pixel for pixel, did you just copy them over? Because I don't think you're supposed to be able to do that.
Right.
Oh,
the top of this meme that I'm looking at says, "Hey, can I copy your homework?" Sure, just make sure it looks different so that it doesn't look like you just copied it. Sure thing. Yeah. I tend to think, yeah, that's probably what will happen if they do sue. Yes, it will be one of the biggest controversies in the history of gaming, but I hope that the right message that Nintendo and Game Freak take from this is that, okay, well, what we probably should do, because we still do own Pokemon and it still is one of the most lucrative franchises in the history of entertainment, is actually get up off our asses and innovate. Or just, give us the one thing that would make the entire world just suddenly stop functioning, which is a Pokemon MMO. But yeah, that's wishful thinking. So just before we move on to the final topic, I said I would look up the Steam charts. Last week, we said that Pal World's peak players was 2.1 million. Last week it was 1.8 million. This week it's 2.1 million. And then currently, the top games being played, Pal World is still at number 1 with 852,000 current players, with Counter-Strike 2 just over half of that, so 431,000. Still very impressive. We're still going to be talking about this for the next little while. It's an amazing success story, and I hope that things like Pal World lives up to its full potential and gets all the patches sooner rather than later, so that way I can jump into it and enjoy the experience with everybody, if I ever find time, that is. All right. Let's move on to the final topic. This is probably the biggest stuff that happened this past week. Lots of layoffs going on in the world of gaming at the moment. We talked about it with Riot. And then I think there was another company that we mentioned. But this past week, man, at Activision Blizzard, it's just unbelievable. I'm going to hand this over to Simon in just a second, but I just got to mention 30% of the team over at Toys for Bob is now gone. Are you kidding me? I swear to God, if Spyro 4 gets canceled, and we know it is happening, it better be happening. They've been teasing it ever since Crash 4. If it's canceled, I swear to God, I'm going to have a meltdown that gets me canceled off the internet, man. But anyways, bigger picture here, besides my own selfish wants. Activision Blizzard layoffs, Syb, go.
Yeah, so Activision and Blizzard have been hit very, very hard with layoffs. It's not catastrophic in like losing like 30 or 40% of the teams there, but it is very, very large. It was 10%.
Yeah.
And so 1 in 10. Certain divisions were barely touched. Other divisions were completely axed.
Right.
Like completely. Every single person working on the new survival game that they were working on, gone.
Yeah.
And let's start with this one. because I talked about the survival game. I did talk about it in the past about it looking quite good. I talked with some people who played it. They were really excited. They said there's some new innovation here with tools and concepts that haven't been done anywhere else. That was about 3 years ago. And then I didn't really hear anything else until just a couple days ago when all the cannons went and then the story came out. Apparently, Activision got involved about 3 years ago, said, wow, you guys are making a new survival game? And internals say amazing, say this is the best thing ever. Wow, amazing. Bobby Kotick came down out of his golden airplane, said, yes, you all have done great. Now I have but one question for you. Can you play this on a phone and add microtransactions? And everybody kind of looked at each other and said, well, no, it's built in Unreal, and it's not really able to do any of those things. In fact, we really need to make this in Unreal 5, the brand new engine coming out here, because like even though it's really great right now, like we need to make it better and move it there. He goes, no, I have a better game engine for you. Here is a crappy engine that's used to make mobile games on the phone. Get it running on this. And they said, can we please not? Who said that? Who do I need to fire or possibly throw out of my airplane? Supposedly. Allegedly. And they all cowered and said, whatever you say, boss. And then Phil and the people from Microsoft come in. They say, how much have you guys gotten done in the last 3 years? And they say, basically nothing. Yeah, basically nothing. We had a really great concept. We have now been in development hell. We have spent the last 3 years trying to get it running on this piece of garbage mobile engine for mobile phones. We have been trying to find a way to monetize absolutely every inch of the game. Phil goes, all right, let me try and play the current version of it. Wow, this is garbage. Okay, right. We'll talk about it later. And by talking about it later, he meant obviously we're going to fire you all.
Yeah.
So this is
is
not
that what happened, or is that just your speculation?
What with the technology? Yes, that is what happened. Okay. Activision came in, said, "Hey guys, this looks really good. We want you to make it for a mobile engine." Bobby Kotick's new friend just sold him this engine. We want you to put the game into here and then load it up with microtransactions, because they don't think the microtransaction thing is gonna go well for PC, so they want to develop for the phone. That is actually legitimately 100% what happened. It has now been confirmed by basically everybody who used to work in that department who have now been laid off. They basically, and some of them were really upset. I can 100% understand why. They were promised that this would get another look at and it would be tweaked. That was promised by staff, not staff, leadership, who are no longer there, including Mike Ybarra, promised them that they would not be canned, that the project would be looked at and then retooled. By retooling, I guess Microsoft meant, everybody fired, and then they'll retool nothing, I guess. So that's a bad move on their part. The next bad move is even worse, and that is them killing off the entire Blizzard customer service team, which I have to say that over the years, a lot of customer support teams from a lot of the big AAA studios is absolutely dog water. Like, it is bad. It is absolutely bad. And I would say that out of all of them, I would say that Blizzard's was by far the best, even at the worst moments in recent history. Activision, Blizzard had a really good customer service group. Not the best. I want to make that clear. Not even as good as I would have liked them to have. But it was still better than the garbage that you get from basically every other company, because it's all the same. They are all sent overseas to some organization that pays people dirt to do a really bad job at customer service, in that they try to get a handful of things done, but as soon as they're like, well, we don't have any more money to make the job work, then they basically, it's like what's the character from Bruce Almighty? What's his, like, Bruce? What's his last name? Do you remember?
Oh, I don't know.
So Bruce from Bruce Almighty gets God powers, and he gets all these prayers that he's got to answer. So he answers the first like three of them by, like, going, yes, let me think about this. Yes, okay, I'll say yes. And then he does that, and then he goes, and how many more do I have? And it's like 1.8 billion messages. And he's like, oh my goodness, there's got to be an easier way to handle this. Control Alt yes. And that's part of the crux of the movie, is that everybody gets their wish granted, or the prayers granted, so everybody wins the lottery.
Right.
Which is, they just win their ticket back, is essentially what happens with that. Everybody, the world goes to hell. And that's what happens at these customer service. I'm doing the air quotes thing with my hand right now. The customer service at a lot of these places, and it's not just games. It's YouTube. It's Facebook. These companies, they err on the side of trying not to screw anything up. So they will try to like handle a certain number of tickets professionally and accurately, and then they control no all of the other requests and just say your request has been denied. And then just like, they just automatically do that. If you get unlucky and your thing gets automatically turned down twice and this is considered human approval, is mass selecting every single thing, going, working as intended, I'm done, I've already worked 12 hours, I'm gone. And if that happens twice, you're out of luck. Not only do you not get a human eye review from like somebody who actually knows what's going on, you're just out of luck. And this is now what Microsoft is going to go with. And I say, wow, I didn't think Microsoft was that stupid. But all right, good luck with that. So absolutely terrible. And I think it's really bad. I think that you and I have talked to death about Overwatch in the past, how they have been mishandled, have been misled, they have misled their customers, they have done a very terrible job. Things are about to get a lot worse because they got significant cuts as well. Hearthstone got significant cuts. Basically, the whole esports thing is either, I can't figure out whether they're trying to reboot it or if they're just abandoning it flat out right now. But that appears to be what's happening, is that Blizzard has just decided, no, we're just walking away from this. This is done. This is over with. We can't do any of this. So bye-bye now. So that seems to be where they're headed, which is horrifying. Again, when you think about it from a company perspective, or from, if you were behind any of the leagues, if you were a fan, if you were an investor, you are in so much trouble right now. And let me remind you who screwed you over. It was a guy called Bobby Kotick, okay? Yep. It wasn't Microsoft. Microsoft walked in, went, wow, all of these eggs have gone bad. I guess we just have to clean everything out. Man alive. We should have probably have found some way to get Mr. Kotick to be held responsible. I don't know. Maybe somebody will sue him. I don't know. But the ball was dropped. So many of the impressions, so much of the potential for esports, looking at it now, looks like a lot of it was manufactured. Looks like a lot of it was closing in on the legal definition of fraud. Not quite there, but getting pretty darn close. And again, I think people should look into this, but expect governments to look into this. Sure. That'll happen in the next 50 years. It's not looking good for Blizzard in the sense of this is like a big step forward. This isn't a big step forward. In a lot of cases, is a big step backwards. Mike Ybarra at the BlizzCon stated quite boldly to an interviewer that he is in this for the long haul, and they're gonna have to drag him out of the company. He is not going to cash out on this. He is in this for the long haul. If he's removed, they're going to have to drag him out of the building. I don't know if any dragging out happened, but he is now out, and he has been replaced. He has been replaced by Jonas. By Johanna. Jonas. I'm thinking of the Jonas Brothers. Johanna Ferris.
Yeah,
I believe is the way you pronounce her name.
And who is Johanna Ferris? Sahib?
Johanna Ferris. Quickly.
No relation to the cool Joseph Ferris from the guy who made It Takes Two. But go on.
I don't think so. I don't think so. So, in 2018 was her last year working for the NFL.
What?
In which she worked there for 11 years as director of consumer products, as vice president of marketing strategy and fan development, club business development. Earlier in her career, she was a sponsorship sales for a manager for sponsorship sales. Okay. She was a coordinator, innovation and business development strategist, all for the NFL up until 2018.
Okay, so what about gaming though?
In 2018, she moved over and became the commissioner for Call of Duty esports. She held that position for 2 years during the run-up to COVID. And then during COVID, she became the SVP of Head of Leagues for Blizzard. For Activision. Blizzard, because that's the Activision side. And then in the last 2 years and a couple months, she has been the GM of Call of Duty. Call of Duty hasn't been doing great over the last 5 years, and
Modern Warfare 2, but aside from that, yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So I'm not saying that's her fault necessarily, especially only having been in that position for 2 years. It's really hard to move a big ship, right. Change its direction. The first year is just trying to get some traction.
Yes.
And then, the year and whatnot after that. And I will point out that this is all while Bobby
was still there.
Kotick was still there, causing basically implosions on a daily basis with all of the allegations, with the numerous tapes coming out, which was all said, oh, looks like nobody made any mess here. I guess there's a body in the ground for no apparent reason. What do you know? Not saying that anything untoward happened there or anything at all like that. I've made it clear that that was a mess, and that this is a mess. She's not a Kotick. How do you call this? She's
lackey?
Not a Kotick lackey.
Yeah.
She's not an Activision lackey. Yes, she did come from the Activision side, being on the Call of Duty stuff.
Do you think that now that it's owned by Microsoft, that she will? I don't know. You probably would. I don't know if you know this, but will she sort of act as sort of like the go-between between what Microsoft wants all the other companies to do and then sort of execute their will? Or is Activision and Blizzard sort of still trying to remain mostly independent under Microsoft? I don't think so, right? Because why would you buy them in the first place? And we all know what the state of their franchises are at the moment, right? What do you think?
So it's a very good question, and I don't know how to answer that.
Sure.
I can say that. Do I think that she's a Kotick sympathizer or loyalist? The answer to that is straight out, laughably no.
Right.
Partially because she doesn't have the same background as him. and partially because um, she does not have that she doesn't have that feel. I've done a little bit of snooping in the sense that I've checked out her social medias, and I would say that she is not in any way, shape, or form tied down to current business,
Yeah. Interests.
hoity-toity.
Yeah.
Oh, you little peasants! You don't know what you want.
Right.
Trust me, I know what you want. That kind of behavior, that kind of, which I can't put that into a word, right? But it's that hoity-toity. Let me tell you how you are going to enjoy our products from moving forward. Absolutely not. Is she the type of person who bloviates online? Again, surprisingly, no, not at all, and quite the reverse, actually. So she's not a person who up and decides to communicate to you exactly how you need to think, how you need to communicate, all this kind of stuff. And her message to her community was quite interesting. And I think I think one of the most interesting things is that she quotes Denzel Washington, the actor, who
Yeah.
in my humble that's sort of like Denzel is obviously is a big actor. Lots of people absolutely love him. He is not that loved in Hollywood for certain reasons.
Oh, really?
He's not loved in Hollywood. Now, I've often said that if a pack of swines really hates you, you're probably the better off for it. So I would say that that's probably a pretty good thing. So I think she's got more backbone and character than probably a lot of people,
Okay.
especially in upper CEO management kind of stuff. In fact, I'm rather shocked by some of the stuff that I have seen, and I am rather shocked by her willingness to communicate, which I can't go into.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say that from the outlook, she all right.
Okay.
She all right in my books.
I dig it.
She did make a big post today. She her facts about me. My number one job in life is raising two amazing boys. In addition to parenthood, a typical week for me includes finding time to do yoga, prayer, and of course playing video games. She plays a lot of Diablo 4, apparently.
Okay.
Through the joy I find in games and working, I also enjoy those who make them.
Mm-hmm.
I remain inspired by Blizzard's iconic legacy, transformational role in gaming that has played a part in my life and the lives of others. Cannot wait to get going, listen, and learn. Her first day is February 5th. So, very interesting.
Yeah.
Extremely so.
So she's basically just, started officially a couple days ago, so it'll take another year or so before we can really see how things work under her tenure. I suppose... I
think 2024 is going to be the year of, for Blizzard and for many other companies, will be the year of trying to figure things out.
Yeah.
I do think, so they definitely, every tech company in the world overhired during COVID. For some stupid reason, they thought that the insane growth they were having would stay constant. A mistake that many people have made over the years. And I have a dozen and a half depressing stories about people who thought that their growth would just keep going because they've doubled their company every year for 10 years like clockwork. Why would next year not be the same? I mean, yes, they did sell their widget to absolutely every person on the planet. But surely next year there was going to be a new planet Earth that materialized out of the cosmos that they would then be able to sell their widget to every person there as well.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, 2 more planets so that they would double their sales for the next year, right? So this insane level of thinking is not uncommon in the CEO space. There's lots of people who fall for this trap. And investors somehow, for some reason, don't understand that, hey, we have our market cap is like here. And we can't go past this market cap. We cannot sell 10,000 more digits to other random people because it's just not going to work. There are exactly this number of people who can buy our thing. If we get that, that's a 100% cornering the market. We're not going to be able to sell our thing. We're going to have to come up with something else to sell to other people. Mm-hmm. And they just don't get that. And it's very stupid. It's very bad. It's part of the complaints that people have, directed at capitalism and at the idea of like permanent growth and stuff like that. And yeah, it's very accurate and people need to be aware of it. But yeah, this is something that they did. They overhired. This coming year, I think they are going to have to rehire because in my humble opinion, I do think they overfired. I think they overcorrected. And just like, and this is an apt communication for weather all across North America in the last 2 weeks, when you start to fishtail, you've got to not overcorrect, but you do have to oversteer where you start fishtailing in the other direction, and that you got to slowly bring it back under control. You can't just, expect to snap your wheel the one way and then everything's fixed. You're back on the road. No, you're gonna fishtail. You're gonna go back and forth until you either end up in the ditch or level out.
Yeah.
And in this particular case, if you guys have been fired, I really recommend that my first recommendation, start making your own product. Genuinely start making your own product. At the same time, start looking for guaranteed employment. But start making your own game, your own idea, your own whatever, and then build on that. And then if you do get another job, great. You can work on both at the same time. But for the love of, your future self, work on something that you own, that you can control, that is something that you can make and grow on your own. Then, of course, be careful about moonlighting rules and whatnot. But yeah, that's the general gist of it, is that I think that the game industry is in a bit of a challenge, but I think this is an exceptional time for new indie companies to start growing.
Yeah.
There are so many possibilities. And as we've seen with Pal World and every single game in the Vampire Survivors genre, mm-hmm. If you're good at making a game and you can make a game that nobody else has made, or if you can cater to a group of people that don't normally make games, I guarantee you there is something there for you to pick up on. And it's going to be pretty darn cool what you can do, and maybe you will be the new Blizzard, because Blizzard started in a garage, BioWare started in a garage, most of EA started in a garage. You can start in a garage too and make something that'll be pretty fantastic in a few years. So especially if you're young, I would really encourage you, try to make something new, because that's what's going to make the difference in the future. Big companies, they've got products that we really like, but they're going to stall out. Stormgate looks amazing, mm-hmm. Absolutely amazing. It's looking really good. They're still a few years away from release, I think. I think that they're probably like another year or two away. But what they're working on, brilliant. Greg Street started his own company, Ghostcrawler, and he's making a brand new MMO that thinks outside the box, mm-hmm. that is completely new. Will he succeed? I don't know, but it was better than staying where he was. And the fact of the matter is, he's hired a ton of people that are getting fired. Left, right, and center. People are quitting, and he's sitting there snapping them up. I've been watching him on Twitter, on all this stuff. He'll say, yes, this person was fired from Blizzard. Very sad. This person had been working there for this many years. Genius, did this, and this. Guess where he's working now? Right here. I just hired him.
Nice.
So this is the silver lining, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And I really say this to game developers. 100%. This is the time for you to make your own thing or get with somebody who's making their own thing. Don't try to get back in with Disney, EA, Microsoft, because those companies don't know how to maneuver faster than you can. Yeah, they've got a lot of power behind them, but they're also canceling projects that are very similar to Pal World that have just taken off with less than 20 people made that game?
Yeah.
Like, this is the time. Get out there with all this new AI tech coming out. You're going to be able to make products you're going to be able to dance circles around some of these bigger companies. Yeah. And there's so many good options. There's so many good genres that are just waiting for you to put your hand around it and say, I can do this.
Yeah.
And if you're...
Yeah. Sorry, so we have to sort of conclude this. But just to put a cap on your point, if there's ever a time in history where a great original idea can really shine forth, it's now. Because what I see, and a lot of people notice, is that in the deluge of entertainment that is available to us across all different mediums, a lot of it can start to feel the same. So if you can introduce something original, or in the case of something like Pal World, if you can put a whole bunch of already preconceived ideas into something new and interesting, this is the time to do it. It will stand out. People will want to play it. So, yeah, please follow Syb's advice and see what you can do. All right, we do have to finish this, though. I want to thank you all for listening to this episode of Maximum News. Make sure to hit the like button. Make sure to leave a comment if you have any thoughts on any of the stuff that Syb and I talked about. Make sure to get out your prayer circles and start performing gyromancy in the hopes that Silent Hill or something Silent Hill related gets announced tomorrow. But by the time this will be available, it will be tomorrow. It will be Wednesday. But, you get my point. I want to thank Syb, as always, for doing the show with me. And Syb, thank you for that amazing breakdown of the Activision Blizzard stuff. Is there anything you wanted to plug before we finished?
No, we're gonna be doing a whole bunch of different stuff in the near future. Again, just listen in. I'm finally recovered, so we are trying to get back to making some interesting content.
Yeah, you sound so healthy. Finally. Yeah. And then you guys can find me just on all the regular forms of social media, just at Max Derrat. I will have a video out on my channel tomorrow. At around 4 o'clock. It will be titled The Most Inspirational Video Game Ever Made. If you want to find out what that game is, you'll have to go over there and, if you like the stuff there, just subscribe or, hit the like button. It's free and easy to do. All right. That'll do it for us, guys. We will be back again next Tuesday or Wednesday. We record on Tuesdays and release on Wednesdays. But until then, I want to remind you, as always, and as per usual, stay yellow, my friends.